we at Rimo3, we love apps. Apps are the bread and butter, I believe, is how Samit describes it. Where do you see the importance of applications in these new systems? I mean, the cloud's incredible. It's super awesome. As a technology, it's awesome. But it's kind of boring if you don't have apps that you run and can work on and do business. Where do you see the pairing of applications in those use cases?
It really depends. On the app itself, most likely, right? So some apps are going to SaaS, and therefore you don't have to install it anymore. However, the move from just Windows 32 apps, for example, we think that the shift to MSIX will really make a difference and easier to plug and play on a physical PC and a cloud PC. So that change, that transformation is something very important to create sort of the containerization of an app as part of a DaaS cloud PC environment. And most customers currently are in that translation. Hey, is it going SaaS, or are we modernizing our app as well? So technologies like that you guys are building to make it easier and test it along the way per platform, I think that is really a game changer, because it's one of those things that is not always the first thing to think of. Like, people go from on-premises to Windows 365, and then they start a POC, and then they start thinking, okay, what are the apps we should include here? And is this app, okay, let's pick the most difficult or the most easiest one, and then we succeed in the POC. And that's a good approach for a POC, but after that, you need to start thinking, okay, what are the actual apps you want to include? And if like technologies like Rimo3 can help with that translation and make that easier, creating that same kind of frictionless feeling for customers, I think that is amazing. And some apps just work as well on the cloud, right? It's just Windows, and changing from Windows 10 to Windows 11 is pretty much the same kernel and software base, and doesn't have that much compatibility issues. But think about like Windows 7 or even XP going to Windows 11, and that kind of transformations are still active pretty often. So that translation to SaaS and what's underneath that and what's holding you back from moving to SaaS, that's really a space that not that much companies are doing. So I'm glad that we have this partnership, and we are working on ways how the transition can be more automated as well, right? So.
Well, and it's a great point, Christiaan. So from my perspective, Sage, first off, I would never say bread and butter. I'm not a nerd. I wasn't born in 1960. But I do say that applications are the lifeblood of any business.
There we go.
And the reality around that, to Christiaan's point, is people are starting to realize, yes, we're going to move a bunch of these to SaaS. In fact, I have maybe 5 installable desktop applications on my entire Windows 11 instance and cloud PC. Everything else is SaaS for us. But for those enterprises that have 20 years of legacy debt and customization and homegrown applications, it's not the compatibility that I'm seeing as people start moving from Server 2012 to Windows 11 multi-session that's causing the issues, right? For us at Rimo3, we usually don't talk about our own technology on these podcasts, but it's more about the configuration of the OS, right? When you do sys-level 1 security hardening on Windows 11, that breaks application functionality, whether it's cloud PC or whether it's physical. When you change GPOs, when you start uploading new baseline security profile configurations, or you have a new CSP that's a little bit more hardened than your traditional vanilla one that's sitting up there for Windows 365. That's where functionality starts meeting kind of performance issues or theoretical launch issues. And that's where we want to bring automation to the table to say, hey, I want to test your version of your homegrown application against your version of your configured workspace, whether it's physical, virtual, or cloud-based. I don't care, right? Like, ultimately, my goal is to move as many workloads as humanly possible into the workspace that's right for your users, wherever it's hosted. So I've always played that agnostic type of role. So Sage, for me, when you start thinking about applications and their adoption, it's going to be based on the fact that, Christiaan's right. Windows 10 to Windows 11, the kernel is basically the same. You're going to have a 96, 97% vanilla compatibility, but enterprises that I know of have never deployed a vanilla Windows 11. They've done their own GPOs, and this is kind of the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Christiaan, is what happens to all those gold images? The old way of managing gold images with GPOs and the VHDs. Now with Windows 365, that's all gone by the wayside. It's all in this nice little CSP file that gets downloaded upon login, right? So for me, the long answer is I think for the applications, the reason that things would potentially become issues is because of the configurations of the workspaces themselves. But back to you, Christiaan. Tell me a little bit more about how are people taking back to that gold image. I'm working with a financial services company right now that has 27 gold images that they deploy to their 80,000 users. How are they going to get one Windows 365 image? What are they going to do?
This is the good thing for those companies. They can still do that in Windows 365 as well. So we are not blocking any existing procedure of doing that. So we support it. However, we don't recommend it. So our recommended way is to what you just said, modernize your apps and use Intune CSP configuration files to transform your Kerberwell's kind of Active Directory GPO approach to Microsoft Intune, Microsoft Endpoint Manager. So what we recommend to do is decouple the apps from your image, because we have images in the gallery that we always keep up to date as a SaaS offering. So you should layer your apps in Intune just as separate delivery roles that you can just easily configure for MSIX and Win32, and as well even AppV is supported in there. And then those apps will be pushed based on a machine-based policy or user-based policy to the Cloud PC environment. And the easiness there is that you can just swap the OS and just update it. And the other easiness is there that you can just plug and play across the globe and expand your environment just based on those rules, or update applications separately from creating a golden image. And that's kind of the holy grail, how I look at it, because previously, like companies like RAS software has been with Automation Manager and such, have been doing similar things as well inside a golden image. And right now you can do it outside the golden image with Microsoft Endpoint Manager while using a technology to make it easier to use those vanilla images as an underlying platform. So we don't block customers if there's a procedure from doing so, and the onboarding process is then easier as part of Windows 365. We support that. But we definitely recommend to opt out of that procedure because it's not very efficient. So.
And that makes perfect sense, right? I just think that with people that have been doing this for 20 years in the VDI space and managing these gold images and building these gold images, there'll be a transition period. But I think the CSP model, right, being able to do a pre-deployment test and know that it's going to work in a sandbox environment prior to deploying, it's a really cool and effective way to manage flexibility while maintaining a singular OS, right? An OS build, which is very cool. The other piece too, right? You just kind of touched on this a little bit, is Intune. How have you seen kind of the adoption of folks that have been traditionally focused on config manager and physical deployments? That's where the majority of enterprise workloads, application workloads reside, with years of packaging, years of customization and stuff. Are people moving those over to Intune today to get those application workloads into DaaS and Windows 365?
Yeah, it's definitely a very accurate use case right now, and even VDI solution, whether it's like non-persistent or persistent, they have been using SCCM or config manager or MECM, how it's being called right now, for building those golden images too. So those apps are being pushed by config manager to that golden image. So that translation to Intune needs to be done to make it more modern. So it's one of those use cases, part of that application transition to Intune and a more like SaaS offering that is like happening right now. And that process is currently a little bit like, okay, I need to pick it up and transform it with a Win32 wrapper and such. And yeah, I know we are talking about how can we help and partner there to make that transition more seamless, right? Like how can we pick up an app and then just drop it in Intune and push it to a Windows 365 cloud PC environment. And I really think that's a really problem solving feature to present to customers that are currently in that transition phase and moving more and more like those applications to the cloud PC environment. So.
Yeah, and for those of you that didn't pick up on Christiaan's little cue there, we're going to be doing a couple of videos in a few weeks around one of the new upcoming features of Rimo3 that's going to help with that migration. Because this is the one thing I kind of figured out, Christiaan, when we started thinking about this is, gosh, now I'm moving my OS to the cloud. I'm moving my management plane to the cloud. I'm moving my applications off of an on-prem management plane into a cloud-based management plane. I'm now doing a modernization of my applications, changing the format to extend the longevity. It's a lot of mini migrations happening at the same time, which can be quite overwhelming for folks. But our goal working with you guys is to automate as much of that as humanly possible, right? So when people start thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to migrate management planes, I got to migrate application file format styles, I got to get off of AppV, Intune doesn't support AppV, but MSIX is still too new, or what do I do? Like, our goal is to kind of continue working with you guys to say, you know what? There's a way to deliver every application to every workspace regardless of what it's where it's hosted. Let's figure it out. Right? Let's figure out. It might just be an old MSI, and that's okay. That's supported in Windows 365. You can still deploy your application the way that you've always deployed it. So this is the common conversation that I'm having with enterprises, which is, nah, this is too much. It's too big of an undertaking. I'm like, it's really not.
Rimo3 offers automated pre-deployment testing of Windows applications, OS updates, and security patches. Use unattended automation to test and assess application readiness for Windows 10, Windows 11, Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop, as well as identifying MSIX and multi-session suitability. Your apps, your workspace, our priority.